I'm 85 years old, and I pushed my son away because I thought that was how you made a boy strong. I used to say it with pride. I didn't raise a soft child. I didn't coddle him. I prepared him for the world. That's what I told myself for most of my life. Now the house is quiet in a way that feels permanent, and I don't say those things anymore. At 85, you don't have many illusions left. The body slows down. The phone rings less. You sit in your living room and think about the people who used to run through it. You realize which sounds you'll never hear again. I'm not telling this story to be forgiven. I don't expect that. I'm telling it because I finally understand something I didn't when it mattered. When my son was little, I was 27. His father had already shown me what weakness could do to a family. He drifted from job to job. Promises came easy to him. So did excuses. When he left for good, I told myself I would not raise a boy who depended on anyone. I worked at a grocery store during the day and cleaned offices at night. I was tired all the time. There was no room for softness in me. Softness felt dangerous. My son was a gentle child. He liked drawing more than sports. He would sit at the kitchen table with his crayons, quiet for hours. Sometimes he'd bring me a picture of the two of us standing under a big yellow sun. I would glance at it and say, "That's nice," while I washed dishes. I don't remember ever sitting down beside him to draw. When he fell off his bike at 8 and scraped his knee badly, he cried hard. I remember pulling him up and saying, "You're fine." Boys don't cry over things like that. I thought I was giving him armor. He stopped crying so loudly after that. In school, he struggled with math. He would sit at the table with his workbook open, staring at the numbers like they were written in another language. I didn't sit with him. I told him to figure it out. "The world won't solve your problems for you," I'd say. Sometimes I heard him sigh in that small, defeated way children do. I pretended not to. I told myself I was building resilience. I didn't see that I was building distance. In his teenage years, he tried to talk to me once about a girl he liked. He stood in the doorway while I folded laundry. His voice was hesitant. I listened for a minute and then told him not to get distracted. "Focus on your future," I said. "Feelings can wait." He nodded. After that, he kept his feelings to himself. I thought I was guiding him. I thought I was protecting him from heartbreak, from failure, from becoming like his father. I didn't realize I was teaching him that his inner world was something to hide. He got a part-time job at 16. He came home exhausted but proud. I told him that was good. That hard work would make him a man. I never asked if he was overwhelmed balancing school and work. I never told him he didn't have to carry so much so young. He learned not to ask for help. When he graduated high school, there was no ceremony for us. He didn't want one. "It's not a big deal," he said. I remember feeling strangely disappointed. I wanted him to care more. I didn't see that he had learned from me how to downplay everything. He moved out at 19, found a small apartment with peeling paint and thin walls. I helped him carry boxes up the stairs. I remember standing in that empty living room and telling him, "This is where it starts. Don't expect anyone to hand you anything." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He called me once a week in those early years. The conversations were practical: work, bills, the car making a strange noise. I gave advice. I told him to save money, to avoid debt, to think ahead. He never told me if he was lonely. There was a night, I think he was 23, when he called past midnight. That was unusual. His voice sounded different, tighter. He said he'd made a mistake at work and might lose his job. I told him everyone makes mistakes. Then I told him to fix it and move on. "Don't dwell," I said. "That's how people fall apart." There was a silence on the line I didn't understand at the time. Years later, I would realize that was the night he stopped reaching for me in that way. He did lose that job. He found another. He always found another. He became dependable, steady, the kind of man who pays his bills on time and keeps his word. people respect him. I know that much. But respect is not the same as closeness. He married in his early 30s, a quiet woman with kind eyes. I liked her. I think she tried to bridge the space between us. She'd ask me questions about his childhood, as if she were searching for something he wouldn't say himself. I told stories about his grades and his jobs. I didn't know how to talk about his fears or dreams. I had never made room for them. When my first grandchild was born, I held that baby and felt something soften in me that I hadn't felt in decades. I wanted to tell my son he didn't have to be so strong all the time, but the words stuck. We were not a family that said those things. He moved across the country for work when he was 38. Better pay, better opportunity. I told him I was proud. I meant it. I also knew, quietly, that the distance would become permanent in ways geography only explained partly. Phone calls became monthly, then occasional, visits once a year, if that. When they came, the house felt alive again. My grandson's laughter echoed in the hallway. My son would fix things around the house without being asked. He was capable, efficient, polite. We never fought. That's what people don't understand. There was no big explosion, no dramatic break, just a steady cooling. I would watch him sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, and I would want to ask him what he was thinking about. But the habit of a lifetime is hard to break, so I would ask about work instead. He always answered, briefly. The turning point came when I was 79. I had a minor stroke. Nothing dramatic, the doctor said. I was lucky, but lying in that hospital bed, tubes in my arm, I felt something I had pushed away for years. Fear, not of death exactly, but of leaving things unsaid. He flew in the next day. I remember the look on his face when he walked into the room, controlled, concerned, not panicked. He took my hand. His grip was steady. "I'm here," he said. I wanted to tell him I had been wrong. That strength without tenderness is just another kind of weakness, that I should have let him cry, that I should have listened more. Instead, I told him I'd be fine. After I was discharged, he stayed for 3 days, cooked meals, drove me to appointments. On the last evening, we sat in this same living room. The light came in through the curtains just like it does now. I said, "You turned out strong." He looked at me for a long moment and said, "I had to." There was no anger in his voice. That almost made it worse. He flew home the next morning. I stood at the door and watched the car disappear, and I knew something had been confirmed, something that had been forming for years. He was strong, but he was strong alone. In the years since, we have been cordial, respectful. He calls on holidays. He asks about my health. I ask about the children. There is kindness between us, but there is also a wall built from small bricks laid over decades. What can't be fixed is not dramatic. It's subtle. It's the easy way he talks to his friends compared to how he talks to me. It's the fact that when he struggles now, I hear about it from someone else. It's knowing that if he ever sits somewhere at 85 thinking about me, he may remember me as solid and reliable, but not warm. You cannot go back and sit at that kitchen table with the crayons. You cannot kneel beside the bicycle and say, "It's okay to cry." You cannot rewind the late night phone call and choose different words. Time moves one way. It does not negotiate. If you're listening to me and you have a child or a parent or anyone who looks to you for comfort, I won't tell you what you should do. I spent too many years telling someone how to be. I will only say this: strength grows in strange soil. Sometimes it grows best where it feels safe to be small. I thought love meant preparing him for hardship. I didn't understand that love also means being a place someone can fall apart. There is a difference between teaching independence and withholding closeness. I didn't see it then. I see it now, when the days are shorter and the evenings longer. I am proud of my son. I truly am. He is a good man. He has built a life without leaning on anyone too heavily. That was my lesson to him. But I wish I had also taught him that leaning is not the same as collapsing. At 85, you sit with your memories more than your plans. You replay ordinary moments, the sound of a small boy sighing over homework, the way a teenager hovered in a doorway hoping to be heard, the look in a grown man's eyes when he says, "I had to." Those moments don't shout. They whisper, and the whisper lasts longer. I don't know how many years I have left. My hands shake more than they used to. Some mornings it takes me longer to remember what day it is. But I remember his childhood clearly. That's the strange part. If I could sit across from him now, not as his mother trying to mold him, but just as an old woman telling the truth, I would say I was afraid. Afraid he would be hurt. Afraid he would fail. Afraid he would become like his father. And in trying to guard him from pain, I became a different kind of absence. I don't expect a grand reconciliation. Life is not built that way. We are who we have been for too long. But if this story means something to you, maybe just hold someone a little longer when they're trying not to cry. Maybe ask one more question before giving advice. Not because I say so, just because time moves quietly and then it doesn't. As for me, I sit here most afternoons on this beige sofa, the light coming in soft and steady. I think about a small boy with crayons and a big yellow sun. He drew us standing close together. I hope, in some part of his memory, we still are.